Coming from Virginia, we found Seattle home prices a bit of a shock. At that time, the average home in Seattle was worth $220,000. In Charlottesville, it was just over $150,000. I remember one house we saw in our price range that didn't even have a front door. You had to enter through the garage. I'd spent years thinking about how cool it would be to take my parents on a tour of my first home. But the thought of showing them a house with no front door, taking them in through the garage, and then telling them the place had cost much more than the home prices they or I were used to just didn't seem right. So we found another house, this time with a front door. After 2 years, we sold it at a profit and bought a new one. We were living in that second house in 2008 when the economy tanked and the real estate market plummeted. With home prices crashing around us, I started thinking about how to minimize our own losses. Like Mr. Sana, we'd converted our money into bricks, and I wanted to protect our investment. From my perspective as an economist, it seemed like the best move was to sell our house before things got any worse, rent until the market bottomed out, and then purchase our next home at a rock-bottom price. But my wife reminded me that, while selling, renting, and buying again might make good financial sense, it was a pretty terrible idea for our family. By then, we had 3 kids, and uprooting them twice simply wasn't worth it. In our case, the downside of moving far outweighed any potential financial benefits of my scheme to sell, rent, and then buy low. Even during a time of dire economic circumstances, our house was still more than just a financial asset. It was our home. This all goes to show that real estate decisions are complicated by so many factors that even an economist can't always make them strictly as an economist. That's why, while it may look strange from the outside, building a house brick by brick is sometimes the smartest thing to do for the people on the inside. Spencer and I wrote Zillow Talk to help you figure out the smartest thing to do for the people on the inside of your house. This book is about the new rules of real estate. It's intended to help you buy a home or sell a home, and to sound smart when talking to other people buying and selling homes. And it reflects the big bet behind our company too. Whether you want to spot the next hot neighborhood or are deciding whether to buy the worst house in your current one, let the data be your guide.
Spencer's Shades of Gray. Hi, this is Spencer Rascoff. Like Stan, I have had my own real estate epiphanies too, though they took place in Seattle, not sub-Saharan Africa. Just as Stan learned that walls don't make a home, I learned, a few years back, that it is a rookie error to view a piece of real estate as either for sale or not for sale. In fact, many houses are in a gray area somewhere in between. A homeowner who previously had no intention of selling might suddenly be tempted by a buyer's generous offer, and a homeowner who wants to sell might be persuaded to wait for better market conditions. So if you're willing to operate within those shades of gray, there are a lot of creative ways to end up in the house you want. When my wife and I moved to Seattle in 2003, we needed somewhere to live, but we weren't quite ready to buy a home. While looking for a house to rent, we came across the perfect place. But there was a catch. The owner wasn't trying to rent it. He wanted to sell it. Since the house had been on the market for about a year, we figured the owner was having trouble finding a buyer willing to pay his asking price. So we wrote him a letter convincing him to rent it to us instead. All we knew was the house's address. We had to send the letter by snail mail. The alternative for the homeowner was selling at a loss or continuing to pay the mortgage out of his own pocket. Renting to us was therefore a win-win for us all, we suggested. Luckily for us, he agreed. He took the for sale sign out of the yard, and we moved in. We were still renting that house 2 years later when we learned that my wife was pregnant with our first child. There's some social pressure to buy a house when you're starting a family. Plus, Zillow was just getting off the ground, and it dawned on me that an executive at an online real estate company should probably own his own home. Then again, we were happy in our rented home, so we called up our landlord and made him an offer to buy the home we were renting. It couldn't have worked out better. Even though our offer was below market value, the owner ended up doing fine. He got more for the house than he would have if he'd sold it in 2003, plus he'd collected 36 months of rent from us. Also, by selling the house to the rental tenant, he didn't miss a single month of rent. Meanwhile, my wife and I purchased the home we already loved at a very favorable price. If we'd let the for sale sign on that house scare us away,